Chapter 28. Home on the Range. I had fond memories of Valley Springs, where Dad owned horses, chickens, and cows. Russ and I often talked about having a piece of property and owning some animals ourselves. We had moved away from the family homestead a few years earlier and were living in a crowded subdivision in Apollo Beach. It was a nice area, but we missed the open spaces, the family, and the peace and quiet. It wasn't long before we began looking for property close to Russ's folks. I drove around the area looking for signs reading for sale by owner. I'd heard there was land for sale on 36th Street. It was a dirt road separating Ruskin on the west side from Sun City Center on the east. I drove the entire road, but nothing was posted. Leaving a trail of dust behind, I ended up in the middle of nowhere. Beyond that point was a well-worn path leading through some trees with thick underbrush on either side. I could hear ripples of rushing water from a nearby river. Although there were no signs, I saw an old rancher not far from me tending to his cattle. "Hello," I called. Getting the man's attention, I shouted, "I heard there's some land around here for sale." Mr. Smith walked over and stood on the other side of the barbed wire fence. "I'm thinking about it," he said. "I carved out 2 acres right here." He pointed to his right, where a large oak tree stood with pines scattered over a grassy field surrounding a pond. It was the most picturesque property I'd ever seen. $15,000, he quoted. I rushed home and called Russ. That evening we visited the area and Russ called Mr. Smith. "We want to buy your 2 acres. We have money for a down payment and we'll get financing for the rest." Our excitement was only surpassed by the praise we lifted to the Lord. That property was far more beautiful than we expected. It seemed God just laid it in our laps, as there were no signposts, and Mr. Smith happened to be tending a newborn calf when I drove up. We visited it numerous times over the next week as we worked with the bank to get a loan. Lying in bed, we talked about what needed to be done, how to accomplish it, and dreamed about how wonderful it was going to be living there. Mr. Smith called about a week and a half later. "I've changed my mind. My brother asked me not to sell." I was devastated. We had walked the entire 2 acres, decided where our driveway would be, looked at modular homes, and were talking about getting it surveyed. I had my heart set on living there. Hanging up, I wish I'd never seen the place. I asked God what His plan was because it sure wasn't mine. I moped around for the next couple of days, cried some, and was upset with Mr. Smith. I had no desire to look for another place. Finally, the Lord gently shook me as I read His word. He made me realize I had to give it up. He was in control. I wasn't. Begrudgingly at first, I relinquished my disappointment, my anger, and my tears. It was obvious God wasn't in it. He had something better in store for us. Once that desire left, a sense of peace flooded over me, and the yearning to own that land disappeared. I began searching again with a renewed desire to trust the Lord. It was less than a week later when I received a strange phone call. Without any introduction, the voice on the other end of the line stated, "I've decided to sell after all." His voice caught me off guard. "Mr. Smith?" My thoughts were racing. After all the frustration and wasted tears he put me through, and now he's changed his mind? I wanted to tell him he could keep his perfect 2 acres with the beautiful pond in the middle of a pasture at the end of a quiet dirt road where seldom is heard a discouraging word and the skies are not cloudy all day. That's what I wanted to tell him. Instead, My words were deliberate, without hesitation. Okay, we'll buy it, but we're only giving you $13,000. What was I saying? Regret welled up immediately, and apprehension began to build. I wanted to laugh and say, just kidding, but it was too late. Mr. Smith cleared his throat. Okay. I was stunned. I hung up and marveled at how foolish I was. We could have lost our dream property a second time. Then I realized those words came from the Lord because I didn't have that kind of courage. It took a moment to calm down before I laughed. God's sense of humor always surprises me and warms my soul. He not only gave us the desire of our hearts, but He gave it to us at a discount. Russ and I hurried over with a binding contract. We began making plans for the next stage of our life on the most beautiful property we'd ever seen.